lost in my doubts, tangled in stories I can't live without. But there's a fire, it's burning inside, calling me forward, I can't run and hide. It's not about perfection, it's about the climb, breaking through the limits, one step at a time. With every breath, I'm closer to the dream, a life that's bold, a heart that gleams. Be great, stand tall, rise above it all. Let your light shine through, answer the call. There's power in you, don't hesitate. This is your moment, go on, be great. The mirror's reflection, it shows who I am, but it's just the beginning, not the end of the plan. Through trials and heartache, I've learned how to fight, to shape my tomorrow. I start with tonight. It's not about the shadows, it's about the flame, fueling the courage to rewrite the game. Every step forward, I leave fear behind. Greatness is waiting, it's yours and it's mine. Be great, stand tall, rise above it all. Let your light shine through, answer the call. There's power in you, don't hesitate. This is your moment, go on, be great. Through the storms and the pain, I'm finding my way again. With purpose, with heart, I'll never fall apart. It's the journey, not just the end, a story that begins again. I'll build it, I'll create a life that resonates. Be great, be great, stand tall, rise above it all. Let your light shine through, answer the call. There's power in you, don't hesitate. This is your moment, go on, be great. This is your story, it's time to ignite a life of intention, a future
Well, hello, everybody. Hello and welcome in. Welcome to our Thursday stream, which is the Idea Academy stream. So for those of you who might be newer to my channel, this is something that I do every single Thursday, and it's not about gaming. It's not about any of the stuff that we normally talk about. Thursdays are special. Thursdays are all about you and about how you're growing. So whether you're a content creator, whether you're a streamer, whether you're just somebody who's maybe you're in school, maybe you're at a job, and you just want to know how to get better and how to be better, how to grow past your next level, that's what we do here today. Because let me tell you real quick, the story of me, right? And the reason that I talk about this so much, the story of me is that I was stuck for a long time. Have you ever been there? You ever been to a place where you were like, oh, I'm stuck. This is where I'm at. I can't get any further. I can't go any higher. I feel like I've plateaued. If you have been in that place, then you're exactly like me. And with me, it happened professionally. I had gotten to a point where I was doing really, really well in my career, really, really well in the workplace, in the corporate world. I was mentoring and training people at a very, very high level, but I felt stuck where I was because I knew that there was something else. There was something bigger that I was supposed to be doing. And so I hope that you also believe, you have a belief that there is something bigger that you're supposed to be doing. Now, again, if this is kind of a new thing to you, I want to invite you into the conversation. This is, I label this kind of as a podcast or a talk show or whatever else, but I do want to invite you in. I want to make this a two-way conversation so that it's not just me talking to myself. Now I've got a bunch of points, a bunch of notes here. I'm going to talk about a bunch of things. So don't feel like you have to carry the conversation, but I do want to know what you're thinking, where you're at, what questions you have, and how I can help you, because this is what I do in my life outside of the streaming space and outside of this space. What I do is I help people get unstuck because I know what it's like to be there. So let's all of that being said, let's talk about what we're here to talk about today. Let me set this up for you. You think you're making progress, but are you actually just keeping yourself busy? Now, we talked, let's see, a couple weeks ago, we talked about the fact that busyness, keeping ourselves busy, is often actually a fear response. It's a response out of fear of concentrating on things, on focusing on things. Sometimes it's a response out of fear of just being alone with our own thoughts. And that's not what I'm talking about today. Today, I want to talk about why it's so important not to start with the details. When you're trying to grow, when you're trying to become better or bigger or great or anything that you want to do in your life, it's so important not to start with the details. What do I mean? Let me talk about this. I was in a meeting this week, and in this meeting, I walked in and there was a group of people there, and there was a leader who was there, and we got into a conversation about a project that was going on. And as we walked into that meeting, there were a couple of things that were kind of telltale signs. The first one was that there was already some stuff up on the whiteboard. And whenever you walk into a meeting and there's already some stuff up on the whiteboard, or if you walk into a classroom session, right, and there's already stuff on the whiteboard, what you know is that person, they've already got an agenda. They've already got something that they've decided on, that they've figured out. And that's fine. That happens all the time, especially in leadership. You find people who they kind of determine what it is that they want to go after, and that's what they're going to go after. Hey, 30-day coaching man. What's up, Head of Steel? Welcome in. Yes, today is the final day officially of the 30-day New Year challenge, but I do want to invite you in. If you hit ¡challenge, what you will get is an invitation. I'm now running this as an ongoing 30-day challenge. So if you want to get better at anything, if you want to choose one thing in your life and you just want to improve it, I don't know, it doesn't matter what that is. Maybe your health, maybe your finances, any of those things. The 30-day challenge can help you start. All you got to do is click on that. That's going to take you to my website, and that's going to give you the information that you need to join the challenge. So do that today. It's super fun. It's super easy. It does not require a lot of effort, but you will see real change in 30 days. 30-day challenge achievement unlocked. Let's go. Patch just finished the 30-day challenge today as well. So breaking out of that commercial rather, and back into my story from yesterday. So we came in, the leader had a list of things already up on the board, very clear that he had determined what the answers were. And this is where it gets to be a problem, because as I sat in that meeting and I listened, and I listened to what was laid out, the problem was that what the leader had decided on was all of the details that needed to be put in place, right? It was all about, the whole conversation became about the details. Where's the tactics? What are the things that we need to do today? What's this? What's the low-hanging fruit? What can we go after? What can we do, right? And that's good, right? We want to have meetings, we want to have conversations with people about the tactical things. But here was where it fell apart for me a little bit. When we talked about what I call organizational health, but what that really is helping organizations, or in our cases, helping individuals understand kind of the why behind how we do what we do, and not only the why, but how that interfaces with the actual activity. See, I believe that we drive productivity, that we drive growth through a framework that I call the IDEA framework. It starts with I, which stands for identity. It moves through D, which are disciplines. E, which is execution. So disciplines are the small day-to-day things that we do to prepare ourselves for the big moments. Execution are the large choices, which lead us down the paths that we need to go. And then the A is for accountability, which means we build a structure of accountability to make sure that we're constantly on task. So my belief is that that's foundational, that you can't enter into a conversation with an organization or with an individual. And I coach individuals and I consult with organizations. So, I have a little bit of play in both these spaces, but you can't enter into either of those things without really having some of those things nailed down first. But in this meeting, that was being identified as a long-term goal. Right? It was being identified as something, well, that's something that we'll worry about over a long period of time, because these organizations, they've already figured out who they are. To which my kind of comment was, well, okay, but have they, right? First of all. And second of all, could they really define how that plays out in their day-to-day activity? And so that meeting became very much about bookkeeping and finances and how we're going to do very tactical, very specific things to support them. But the problem was that we said the thing that is foundational, the thing that's most important in helping anyone, well, we'll leave that till later, right? And that's fine. That's the prerogative of that organization. If that's the way they want to operate, I'm certainly not going to argue with that. I'm going to support it 100%, and I'm going to make sure that they do the best they can with that initiative. But I will tell you, as one of the people who shows up to a stream on a weekly basis about, or maybe for the first time, somebody who shows up to a stream that's really about learning how to grow ourselves, how to be better, how to be leaders of ourselves, I would like you to not take that approach. I would like you to not take an approach where you get stuck in the details. See, this isn't just an organizational problem that I'm talking about. We do this in our lives, and we get caught in all of these little details instead of solving root problems. Do you know what I mean? Have you done this before? Have you gone, okay, I need to get healthier, right? And so, I'm going to go to the gym every day, and I'm going to, take these supplements, and I'm going to do these exercise. And then you've fallen off over time. Well, why do you fall off over time? There are a couple of different reasons. One is that you try to attack too many parts of the problem at once. But the second reason is because so very often when we go out and we set a goal, we're not solving the right problem. We're not solving the reason that we got to the place that we are already. So I would encourage you to start out at the 30-day challenge is a great way because it walks you through this process in a very, very simple way that even I can do. And I'm not the smartest guy, but even I can follow through this. I would recommend, if you want to make a change in your life, don't start in the details. Hey, silly, funny axolotl, how are you doing today? It's good to see you. Don't start in the details. Start by asking yourself, who am I in this moment? Who do I want to become? And how do I get from here to there? Because that will help you solve the root problem. Now, today, I'm going to give you a framework that is going to help you shift your thinking so that you avoid getting lost in those details. And you're actually solving the problems that matter, right? But first, let's talk about this trap that we get caught in, this detail trap that we get caught in, and why we get caught in that. As I was brainstorming this today, I wrote down a few things that, that I think why we get caught in the trap of details. And I think the first one is this: details feel manageable, don't they? When you get down into the little things that we're going to do, I'm going to, drink this glass of water. I'm going to, do this journal prompt. I'm going to do this and this and that thing. All of those things seem manageable, right? They seem tangible. It seems like, well, I'm doing something because I'm writing down on paper. I'm doing something because and that's great, right? We all want to see the result of what we do. That's fabulous. They feel manageable. When we step back and we look at the big picture, that feels kind of ethereal, right? It feels kind of nebulous. It feels like it's kind of like we're trying to describe the fog or something like that, right? It's this big picture thinking, and it feels uncertain. And that is, for a lot of us, for me, I know certainly, and if you're anything like me, maybe you're the same. That's a little daunting sometimes because it seems like it's really head in the clouds thinking. And this is why this leader that I was talking about yesterday, he's a problem solver, but he gets a little friction when he steps back and he thinks in terms of those big things. It feels like we're not moving quickly enough towards execution. And so we have that same trap ourselves. The trick is we don't want to get stuck in big picture thinking, but we don't want to start without it. Does that make sense? We don't want to spend all of our time thinking about the philosophical ramifications and our identity. We don't want to be just drenched in our identity and to the point where we never do anything about it. But we don't want to start until we've established that, right? And when you're helping something, I'm going to push this down to you. When you're helping somebody, if you have somebody that needs your help, let me suggest you don't jump in and start trying to solve the little problems, right? Oh, you know what? You're having relationship trouble. Well, let's talk about this, your communication style and this thing. Well, no, stop and start by being curious, right? Because if you go in with a pre-described way that you're going to fix that person, then what's going to happen is, number one, the fix isn't going to last because it's not going to be coming from a place that's inside them. It's going to be coming from, you're going to be setting something onto them and saying, here is this hat, wear this hat, and it's going to fix everything. And that's not sustainable. It's not going to work, right? And the second thing is it's going to wear out over time, right? Because it didn't originate from them. We get this illusion of control. And a lot of what I talk about on this show on Thursdays is about the illusion of control, because we really believe that we have control over things that we don't, and we really don't believe that we have control over things that we do. Many of us don't believe that we have control over the way that we succeed in life, but we do have control over that because we have control over factors that contribute to that. But we do believe that we have control over things like the way other people will interact with us, the way other people will think about us, the way people will, do what they're doing in their lives. We have a tendency to believe that we have some level of control over all of these things, when it's these things over here that we should be worried about controlling because they're actually in our control. So when we focus on the details, it's one of the reasons we do it is because it gives us the illusion of control. It looks like we're doing something, and as a result, we feel like we're in control. And then the last thing, the last kind of trap that we fall into here is that we mistake motion for progress. And if there's only one thing that you take away from today's session at all, if there's only one thing that you can take out of today, I would hope that it would be this. Do not mistake motion for progress. Progress is your path towards your best self. It's your path towards your best life. It's a path towards the person you want to become. It's the path towards the person that you were meant to become. That's progress. That's not the same as motion. Motion is doing things, right? And so motion is doing things, whether or not they contribute to your best self. And I often talk about this in the framework of saying, what's most important right now? Right? You always have to be asking yourself that question. What's most important right now for my growth, for whatever my area is that I need to get better at? What is most important right now? And if you can answer that question, then everything's going to have direction. All of your action can be kind of vetted in terms of that. Well, let's see. I have these two things that need to get done. Which one of them moves me towards what needs to be done right now? What's most important right now? Well, then the other one can wait, right? But when we don't have that sense of purpose, then everything becomes kind of equally important. And you know what I say, when everything's important, nothing's important, right? When everything's a priority, nothing is a priority. And so we have to be very, very careful about creating that situation and that scenario in our lives. I read a story this week. As I was kind of prepping this episode, I read a story. And the story I read was actually about McDonald's. And McDonald's, I don't know, a couple years ago, they decided that they were going to try to boost their milkshakes sales. Now, the funny thing about this is, of course, the joke about McDonald's is that their milkshake machine is always broken, right? That's what we always say. And there's a lot of potential reasons for that. There's all kinds of conspiracy theories and different things that go on. But a couple of years ago, they decided they were going to try and boost their milkshake sales. And so they went in and they tried to figure out, well, who is buying our milkshakes? And they brought those people in, the people who were buying the most milkshakes, and they brought them in, they did focus groups, and they talked to them about, what kind of flavors would you like? And what kind of, what would this be about? And, consistency and all of those things. And so they retooled their whole milkshake thing, and then they handed it off. They put it out in the restaurants, and what they found was there was no growth in sales at all. It was actually flat. It was completely the same as before. And so they went in and they did a little more research. And they said, okay, we talked to people who buy milkshakes, but what's the commonality about these people? And they found out, well, most of their milkshake sales, and this is going to surprise you, it did me. Most of our milkshake sales are done by like 8:30 in the morning. And they're sold to people who look like they're dressed to go someplace. They're sold by people who are usually alone. And as they researched more and more and more and more, what they were finding was, and keep in mind, I'm not advocating for this nutritionally, but what they found was the people who bought the most milkshakes were not buying them for the flavor or, because there were different varieties and flavors. They were buying them because they were a convenient thing to consume on the morning commute. So people were basically, they figured out we're using milkshakes as a meal replacement. And so for commuters, it's this thing you've got, the straw and the certain degree of viscosity of the shake keeps it so that you can't consume it too quickly while you're in traffic there. It kind of lasts a long time, and it's convenient because you can put it in the cup holder and all of that, right? Hey, it's Aratex, what's up? And so they realized that the problem that they needed to solve wasn't flavor, it wasn't taste. There was nothing broken about that. The problem was convenience. What they needed to optimize was the convenience. And so when they did that, they kind of retooled some things, and they changed the viscosity of it ever so slightly, and they changed some of the things about it. And when they focused on that convenience instead of flavor, they also put machines like up front instead of hiding them in the back. All of these things they did to kind of optimize for convenience. And when they optimized for convenience instead of flavor, guess what they found? Their sales increased. So here's the takeaway that I took from that, as well as my own experience the other day, is that sometimes solving a detail level issue like flavor, right? Like, well, what kind of flavors we have, that's not going to change the bigger outcome. What's going to change the bigger outcome is fixing the right problem instead of the wrong problem. Right? Addressing the right problem instead of the wrong problem. Their milkshakes aren't some base for something healthier or a hangover cure. I mean, they may well be. Both of those things had a steal. I don't know. But I do know that there's this very interesting story, and that now they're selling more milkshakes. Maybe this story was a couple years old, so I'm not sure what the long-term outcome has been, because there's also obviously a cost factor and all of those things that go into this. But yeah, a couple years later, here we are. So the thing that made me start to think about is how can we determine when we're stuck in the weeds? You know what that means, stuck in the weeds? It means you're down in the detail work and you're not seeing the forest for the trees, if you will, right? If we're in the forest and we're only seeing a bunch of trees, we don't realize sometimes that there's a forest, right? That we're actually in a forest. And that's what that is talking about. So how can we determine whether or not we're in the weeds? And I think there are a couple of things that we can do. The first one is the why test. And I really get this from Patrick Lencioni. He wrote a number of books that I've read on organizational health that are really good. He's the one who designed the 6 Types of Working Genius, which is something that I use both in my consulting and in my coaching business. And I think, he's just a really, really great thinker on systems improvement. And the thing that he talks about a lot is when you're trying to figure out if you've got the right problem, is the why test, right? It's the why test. Or sometimes I've referred to it as the 5 whys, because what you're doing in this exercise is you're asking yourself why 5 times, right? Why? I want to do this. Why do I want to do this? Or I have this problem. Why am I having this problem? Okay, well then why is that happening? Okay, well, why is that happening? All right, why is that happening? So, for example, right, let's say that we're going to start with, let's go to, your personal growth. Let's not make this a corporate thing. Let's go to your personal growth, right? And so the thing that I would use is maybe you want to change your diet, right? You want to change your diet because it seems like you're addicted to sugar, right? So the question is why? Right? Why do you feel like you're addicted to sugar? And maybe the answer to that question is, you know what? At the end of the day, I feel really stressed, and sugar is, so I eat sugary snacks, right? Okay. Well, now we have a why, right? Why do you feel really stressed at the end of the day? Well, I feel really stressed at the end of the day because I work in my job. It's a really high demand. I've got to focus on all of these things. There's so many people who want things from me. Okay. Well, why are you having a hard time navigating that? Well, I'm having a hard time navigating that because I come into the office. The first thing I do is I open up my email and I get 5 different emails from 5 different people who all have things that are very important. Okay, cool. Why is the first thing you do when you get into the office every day opening up the email? And maybe the answer to that question, right, is the fact that instead of having a plan going into the day, I'm being reactive to what other people want from me. And so we started with this problem, right, of I eat sugary foods, right? I'm addicted to sugary foods. And we work it all the way back through something that says the reason that I do this is because I don't plan my days out, because I don't have a game plan going into the day. And so when we solve that problem, that can solve all the uphill problems, right? But we don't get there until we start by asking 5 whys. So try that out in your life. Try asking the 5 whys. If you have a problem right now that you want to solve, ask yourself why 5 times. See if you can get to the bottom of that and solve that problem. Don't solve the top line problem first. Solve the bottom. The top line problem that you see will be details, usually details oriented. The bottom line is the true cause, is the root cause. Brickman, cut those weeds and don't spread rumors. That's true. That's kind of a separate topic, but yes, don't spread rumors is a good thing as well. All right. And then the other thing that you have to do is you have to stay out of these personal growth traps, right? So if you spend any time in the personal growth, or some people call it self-help or motivational, if you spend any time in this world, you know that there are certain traps that you can get into, and they're things that feel really good. They make you feel like you're making progress, like you're doing something important, but sometimes they can actually be detailed traps. So I think about like perfecting your morning routine, right? Like, what's your perfect morning routine? Get it all dialed down, and you're going to wake up and you're going to drink a glass of water, and then you're going to go for a 5-mile run, then you're going to do a cold plunge, and then you're going to journal, and then you're going to do this and that and that. Now I'm all for morning routines. I have a morning routine myself, but it's very natural. It's very kind of leisurely, and there's always room for flexibility if, something comes in that needs to be done, right? That's more important than the morning routine. But perfecting those things instead of executing on what really matters, right? So that cold plunge, great. It prepares your body and your mind. But what are you doing with that preparation? Are you setting an intention and a goal for the day? Are you making a very small list of things that you can accomplish, or are you just making a huge old checklist, right? That's the second thing that you can get caught in. So you can get caught into perfecting, things like morning routines. You get caught into over-researching instead of taking action. And this is one of the biggest things that I see. If you're a content creator, or if you want to become a content creator, or if you love a content creator, in any way, this is one of the biggest things that I see. I see with entrepreneurs as well. They over-research instead of taking action, right? So it's like, okay, I'm gonna start streaming, but first I need to know everything. So I'm gonna go onto YouTube and I'm gonna watch 100 hours of videos, and I'm gonna figure out exactly how to set everything up, and I'm gonna do everything right, and I'm gonna get the right equipment, and I'm just gonna make sure it's perfect. But that's just procrastination. That's a very energy expensive form of procrastination, is over researching. The antidote to that is taking action, right? Determining what you want to do and taking action. Because research, that's detail work. Action, or what I would call execution in the idea framework, that is what's going to progress you. That's what's going to move you forward. That's big level thinking. And then that kind of leads into the last thing, which is overthinking, right? Overthinking. And when we talk about that whole research trap, it becomes, I just need one more piece of information. I just need to know one more thing. There's just one more thing that I need to have set up. When I have my Streamlabs set up exactly right, I'm going to start streaming. When I have, this blog post 100% right, I'm going to post it. When I get this video in just the right way with just the right light, and I'm going to look so beautiful and all the captions are perfect, then I'm going to post it, and I'm going to grow my social media audience. But that's just overthinking. Overthinking disguised as perfectionism. And if you're labeling yourself as anything, first of all, right? That's a concern, because we often use labels in the place of our identity. And so be careful of that. But if you're labeling yourself a perfectionist, that's something really to look at. Oh, I'm such a perfectionist. I'm so anal. I'm so OCD. These are the kinds of labels. If you have these labels, then you really need to examine them, because it's going to be hard for you to progress and to grow as long as you're calling yourself something, right? It's better to define your identity. It's better to define your identity around, I am becoming the kind of person who takes action. I'm becoming the kind of person who knows that not everything will be perfect, but knows that things need to get done anyway, right? That's so important, so important. The thought that I just need one more piece of information, or I just need to tighten one more screw, that keeps us out. That keeps us out of action. That keeps us out of doing the big picture stuff that actually will drive growth, that will actually drive our own health, mental, spiritual, emotional, physical, organizational health, is all driven by big picture thinking that's moved to action. Not the other way around. Not action that moves to big picture thinking, because that will always fail. Because what happens is when we get so tied up in action, when we get so tied up in doing the little things, I'm doing this, I'm doing all of these things, what's going to happen is you're going to tell yourself, you're going to start to tell yourself, there is no time for big picture thinking. There is no time to determine who I am. There is no time to determine the direction that I'm going. There is no time to create a business strategy. You will start to tell yourself that lie if you do not begin from the right place. And so in your personal growth, begin from the right place. Ask the big questions first. Solve the right questions first. Erwin McManus, who, as you know, is a mentor of mine and just a coach that that I really, respect him, and I take a lot from him. And he talks a lot about how people conform to expectations. You conform to expectations instead of creating a life that's aligned with your calling. It's the way he phrases it: a life that's aligned with your calling. Now, I would call it a life that is the closest to, and I think he would agree with this, the closest to your design, the closest to your optimum, the closest to the best version of yourself. That's really your calling. Whatever you believe, whatever your belief structure is, all belief structures should be moving us towards the best version of themselves. One of the issues, and I'll step onto a soapbox very, very briefly here, but one of the issues that I have with a lot of mainstream evangelical Christianity today, which, by the way, is the religious tradition out of which I come, one of the reasons I have a problem with it is very what I call anti-exceptionalist. It is a system. If you walk into a large church in most parts of the United States right now, or even a tiny church in most parts of the United States right now, what you're going to hear is you're going to hear a lot of talk about how, you should wait. You should be waiting on God to move you. You're going to hear a lot of talk about how it's not about you, it's about God, about how you can't accomplish anything with God. And the trick to this, there's some truth in all of these things, right? There's a little bit of truth. The Bible does teach humility. It teaches us not to think of ourselves as higher than others. It does teach reliance on the God of the Bible, right? All of those things are taught in the Bible. But the problem is, culturally, that boils down to an essence that says two things. It says, number one, don't try too hard, because if God wants it, he wants it, right? And if he doesn't, he doesn't. I don't believe that's a good theology at all, by the way. I think that fights all the way back against the very beginning, right? The very beginning of the Bible. So I think that's a bad theology. It's certainly a bad path for personal human growth. And the second thing it says is you just have to hang on. Just hang on until, you get to heaven, or whatever they determine the end of time looks like. Because, there's nothing you can do in this world. Just hang on. You just have to live the best life you can. And all of those things drive people. My issue with them is they drive people towards this life where they're like, well, I got to get the best I can. I got to hold on to it. There's no room for growth. There's no expectation for growth. And I believe that when you look at Christianity as an actual system, that more than anything, it expects growth. And not just a growth that's spiritual, more Bible verses, you pray more often, all these things. I know I'm in a very faith-based space here for a moment, but I'm going to bring it back. So please don't dip out if this is not your jam. But what I'm saying is, it's not just about growth on that one plane. I think what Christianity actually does, if you read the text, which I have repeatedly in several languages, if you read the text, what you will find is that there is an expectation that the human being the individual human being grows on every single plane, and that none of those planes, physical, spiritual, emotional, relational, can be separated from the others. I believe there's an expectation of growth. There's an expectation of excellence. There's an expectation of being your best. And let me tell you right now, if you are living in a structure, whether it be a faith structure, a family structure, an emotional structure, a relational structure, if you are living in a structure right now that demands any less than your best of you, then you are not living in a structure that is preparing you for better things. And you know what? You should do better things. You should be better things. You are not meant for whatever it is you are doing now. You are meant for greater things. You have the opportunity for greater things. So don't get caught up in structures that create expectations that keep you in a box. I refer to this as the myth of the real world. Right? In my book, which is coming out this year, it's called Be Great. Please pre-order it when it's available on Amazon. It's called Be Great. And in Be Great, I talk about the 3 big myths that keep us from our best moments in life. And one of those myths is the myth of the real world. The real world, we live in the real world. We tell ourselves in the real world, in this case, in the case of this conversation, we tell ourselves in the real world, you have to focus on the details first because look, these people need this thing and we've got to do this or look, you know, I've got all of these little things that I need to do. But here's the thing. When you say that, when you say in the real world, this is what we've got to focus on, what you're doing is you're allowing those things to define your world. You've got to be better than that. You've got to be more powerful as an entity in the universe than that. You must be the captain of your own ship. And that means that you can't let the details determine what your real world is. Only your intention and your pursuit of that intention are really the world that's real for you, right? And there are obstacles that are going to enter into that. Of course there are obstacles. Of course there's going to be people who get in your way. There's going to be things that get in your way naturally. But you know what? Let me tell you, you're stronger than those things. The power of your intention is so much stronger than the obstacles that will get in your way. Yeah, they're going to slow you down, but they cannot stop you unless you allow yourself to be stopped. And the details, getting mired in the details, is one of those things that will slow you down and do everything that it can to stop you. Don't let it. So I'm gonna put out a challenge to you today, whether you're watching here with me on Twitch today or whether you are watching on YouTube, maybe you're watching the replay right now. I'm just going to put out a little challenge to you today because I like to challenge you. I don't know if you've noticed that. Here's my challenge. What are you treating as reality right now that's really an excuse? Put it in the comments if you're watching the replay. Write it down on a piece of paper and stick it on your mirror. But what are you treating as a reality that might just be an excuse? I'll tell you a story from my own life, right? Of something I was treating as a reality that was in fact just an excuse. And it was this. When I first started out as a coach and consultant, a couple years ago at this point, when I first started doing that process, one of the things that I felt was that I didn't have the credibility to do that work. Even though I had been mentoring and growing leaders for different companies for over 25 years at that point, I felt like it didn't have the credibility. And so I went and I started reading things and I started researching about how to do this. And I started all of the things that I told you before. I got into the weeds. And it wasn't until I stumbled upon just a moment where I looked at myself and I said, you know what? If you don't just start doing this, you're never going to do it. You're always going to be waiting for that last piece of information. And what I realized in that moment was that my perceived lack of credibility, it was an excuse. It wasn't a real obstacle at all. It was a detail. I didn't have the certification. I didn't have the letters behind my name, right? Those were excuses. And when I named those things for what they were, they moved out of my way and I was able to move into a new phase of my growth. So this is the challenge. What are you treating as reality that's really just an excuse? It's a hard question, but take some time and ask and answer it for yourself. Now, the last thing that I'm going to do here real quick is I am going to provide you with I don't know, this is a framework. I came up with this on the spot, kind of. It plays into some other things that I've learned, but this is what I'm calling the backward blueprint, right? So, when you build a house, right, you create a blueprint, or, when you map out a strategy, you create this idea that you start from the beginning and you go to the end. But I'm going to help you create a backward blueprint right now. And so the issue is that a lot of times we start with the small details, right? And we try to build our way up to the success that we want. But instead, what I'm going to challenge you to do today is to work backward from success, right? Now, success, again, if you're newer to the podcast here, what you may be asking yourself, well, what is success, Andrew? Is that money? Is that, what is that? Is it fame? What does it look like? Well, that's really up to you to determine. What's the success that you want, right? I think one of my favorite definitions of success that I've heard is that the people, excuse me, the people who love me most respect me the most, right? So in other words, the people that I love the most, respect me the most. So the people that I care the most about, so like for me, my family, those are the people who have the highest respect, the highest level of respect for me. That would be success for me, right? Maybe your definition of success can be something. You should have a definition, right? That's a big thing. But let's talk about this backwards blueprint and talk about how you can use this to get yourself out of the details. First of all, I want you to start by imagining that you're already successful. So this goes along with that question that I like to ask all of my coaching clients on day one, which is, let's assume that a year from now, you've got all the coaching you need, you've got everything in place, you've got all the resources you need. What does your life look like a year from now with all of the things you need? Because I want you to imagine that success has already happened. What does it look like? What does it feel like? Visualize that. Visualize that. Brendon Burchard, who wrote this book, High Performance Habits, and who's a high performance coach, the best known high performance coach in the world, he talks about the fact that if you can't visualize something, you can't really pursue it. So really step back and visualize. I'm successful. What does that look like? What does it feel like? How does that play out? And then start by going backwards, right? Ask yourself, okay, well, what happened right before this? How did I get to that? And then keep stepping backwards. What led to that breakthrough? What led to that breakthrough? What led to that breakthrough? And then eventually what I want you to do is I want you to find today's big move, the next decision that changes the game, right? And this could be one of two things. It could be, in the idea framework, it could be a discipline, which means what's one thing I'm going to start today that's a small thing that's going to move me towards my goal. One small thing that I can do every day that won't fail. But maybe if you've got some disciplines in place, that next big thing that you're going to do is execution. It's a big decision. It's leaving that job that is just wasting your time and potential, even though you don't know what your next thing is. It's stepping out of that relationship, that friendship, or that romantic relationship that's just not, it's not good for you. It's not building you up. It's tearing you down. It's moving away from the friend group that's not dedicated to your growth. Not leaving them, completely out, cutting them out of your life, but maybe starting to spend more time with people that actually care about growing in the same way that you grow, right? That you want to grow. Whatever it is, what's the next big decision? But work your way back from, okay, the success that I need, the success that I believe in, and then all the way back to what happened next, what happened before that, what happened before that, what happened before that, what happened before that. Here's an example that I wrote down. If you, let's say you wanted to start a business, right? You wanted to start and run a thriving business. And so if we step back, we could say, okay, well, let's see, first of all, we could say, what does success look like? You know what? The business is largely running itself. I have a ton of freedom to do whatever I want, whenever I want, because I have both the time and the resources to do that. I have all the time in the world I want to spend with my family. What came before that? Well, I provided value to people. And as a result of that value, I built a reputation. And so people came to my business for what I had because I built a reputation by providing that value. And then, okay, I'm going to step back. Okay, well, how did I provide value to build that reputation? Maybe it was my weekly content, right? Maybe I put things out into the world like I do every single week. My newsletter that's posted at the top here, by the way, which is completely free. If you're trying to learn how to improve any aspect of your life, I encourage you, maybe your one small step today is just click on that newsletter. I send it out most of the time once a week. Maybe I'll send a little note or something like that out more often than that. But I'm not going to bombard you, with a million different things. But I just want to, I want to give you at least one little thing a week to keep you going. A lot of times it'll be based around what we talk about here. So that one little thing that you can do, right? So, stepping back, right? Built a reputation by providing value. Well, I did that by starting to post content. And then I networked with other people, right? I built a network. Okay, what came before that? Well, I chose a very specific topic that I was going to provide value. I determined who I wanted to provide value to, who my audience was. I don't like the word niche, but that's the word you'll hear on a lot of videos. I chose what my niche was, and I built my brand around that niche, right? Okay, well, that was my sequence backwards. What am I going to do today? Today, maybe I'm going to stop tweaking things. I'm going to stop, like figuring out how to beat the algorithm, and I'm going to start showing up. I'm going to start posting content. I'm going to determine what that niche is, right? Maybe that's today's move, is I'm going to figure out what's the problem that I solve. So I've been through this recently, by the way. The problem, and I'm trying to figure out what is the problem that I solve, and really the problem that I solve is I get people unstuck. That's what I'm best at, is I get people unstuck. Whether it's individuals or teams or leaders or organizations, my best day is getting people unstuck. So if you feel like you're stuck, that's my niche. You're my audience. If you've ever felt like you were flatlined, you're my people, right? Because I've been there. So maybe today is you defining that problem. Maybe it's just posting content, right? And engaging with people who engage with you. You have to walk back. But if you start by just like, okay, I'm going to start posting some content today. Well, now I'm going to get into researching the algorithm and figuring out what the best platforms are and what the best times are and all of that stuff, right? Don't start there. Start from the vision. What does success look like? And what is each step that comes before that? Brendon Burchard, again, he talks about like, what are the five big moves that you need to make to get anything done. So he wanted to write a best-selling book, for example. So he came up with the 5 big moves that he would need to get there. What are your 5 big moves? Figure them out in reverse order. And instead of drowning in those minor details, in the minutia, start with the end in mind. And then take action today based on knowing where you're going. So guys, we are just about out of time here. I know that, everybody's got important things that they need to get to, but I want to thank you guys so much for hanging around. If you have any questions, any comments, of course, I want to offer you the opportunity to throw those into the chat right now, or you can certainly throw those into the comments. And here's what I will guarantee is that every comment that I get, I'm going to respond to you personally. And not only will I commit to responding to you personally, but I will give you the opportunity to access me personally. So what that means is if you respond to me in the comments and you say, hey, I want to talk more about this, you know what? I'm going to talk to you about it. I will give you a free call if that's what you want, just a free 30-minute call to talk through things. I'll certainly be glad to exchange emails with you and talk to you about where you are. I do have coaching offerings as well. If you hit exclamation coaching in the Twitch chat, I don't think it works in the YouTube chat just yet, but if you hit exclamation coaching, you'll find out about some ways that I can help you there. So if you have something and you want to comment on this in response to the show today, just know I'm going to be here to support you, right? I don't use chat bots or, any of those things. I use a little bit of automation sometimes just to help me keep up with things. But, if you get a response from me, it's going to be a response from me. It's not going to be some AI someplace, right? Not that I don't believe in using AI for things, because AI can be very useful. So I don't want to down talk that, but just know if I respond to you, it's me responding to you. Always. That's my promise to you. So just to recap today, if you start with the details, then you are already losing. The real work is in defining your vision first, right? That vision of who I am, who I'm becoming, and what actually matters, and then letting the process follow from that. In other words, solve the right problem. Don't just solve the convenient problem. Don't just solve the problem that's right in front of you. Don't get blinders. Solve the right problem. And so the challenge, again, that I leave you with is this week, before you jump into anything, whether it's, at your work, in your home, in your personal life, whatever it is, relationship, ask yourself first, is this solving a real problem? Is it solving a real problem, like an actual problem? Or is it just something I'm doing because I am expected to do it, or because I think I have to do it, or because I feel like I have a responsibility to do it? And if you're not solving a real problem, step back for a second. I'm not saying don't do it. Just step back and find the root. Find the root and then move forward and dedicate to solving that root problem, not just the convenient problem, not just the detail problem. And once again, drop a comment if you found yourself lost in the details like this, or you're there now, you're having a hard time seeing what the big issue is. Let's talk about that. Just give me an opportunity to chat with you a little bit. I promise you we can make progress. I promise you we can get you unstuck. I promise you that you are meant for bigger things than whatever it is you're experiencing right now. Whatever plateau you're at, there's something higher for you. I know you can get there, because like I always say, you have a moment of greatness that's waiting for you, but it's not coming for you. You have to pursue the moment. And that means getting out of the weeds, getting out of the details, and taking steps to pursue your vision. But you have to start by knowing what your vision is. That's all for this week. Once again, my name is Andrew Burkham. It's a pleasure to hang out with you guys every single Thursday. I hope to see you back. I would love to have you subscribe to my free newsletter. Again, that link is up there. It's andrewburkham.substack.com. If, for whatever reason you're listening to this and not seeing it, I'll be glad to put it in the notes as well. But by all means, please get out there, pursue your moment, and above all, go and be great. I'll see you next time.
I've been caught in the whispers, lost in my doubts, tangled in stories I can't live without. But there's a fire, it's burning inside, calling me forward, I can't run and hide. It's not about perfection, it's about the climb, breaking through the limits, one step at a time. With every breath, I'm closer to the dream, a life that's bold, a heart that grieves. Be great, stand tall, rise above it all. Let your light shine through, answer the call. There's power in you, don't hesitate. This is your moment, go on, be great. The mirror's reflection, it shows who I am, but it's just the beginning, not the end of the play. plan.